we will continue the revision of module 1 and 2. So we had finished hardware models, hardware architecture models. So today we'll start with approaches to parallel programming. Okay. Can say what are the approaches to parallel programming means? So it is nothing but parallelly processing. So I will see what are the approaches. So first one is data level parallelism. Second one is process level and farmer and worker model. So farmer and worker model, that is nothing but the master slave model. Okay, all these three are suitable for task level parallelism. So in the case of data level parallelism, the divide and conquer technique is used to split data into multiple sets, and each data set is processed on different processing elements. PS means processing elements using the same instruction. Okay, that means so it uses SIMD, that is SIMD model, that is single instruction multiple data model. So that means it uses multiple processors, single instructions, and multiple data sets so that you can achieve parallelism. Okay, so in case of data level parallelism, so data will be accepted and that will be subdivided into small chunks and that will be allocated to different processors. Processing elements are nothing but processors for processing, and this approach is highly suitable to processing on machines based on SIMD model. So that means the computers the computer architectures that are based upon SIMD model, so that suits for data parallelism. Then in case of process parallelism, so a given operation has multiple activities that can be processed on multiple processors. Say for example, so you will assign a task to a machine. So in turn, that may have to create so many other threads. So that means, see, we can see once we assign a job to the computer, we cannot expect that one single individual thread will accomplish the complete task. It is not possible. Okay. So instead of that, what it will do, it will create many subthreads. So during that time, many subthreads will be executed independently by so many other processors. So that is called process level parallelism. So therefore, the meaning of process level parallelism is if multiple threads parallelly processing so many threads belonging to one single activity or one single task is called as process level parallelism. Next one is um, farmer and worker model, that is which is also called as master slave model. A job distribution approach is used. One processor is configured as a master and all other remaining processing elements are designated as slaves. The master assigns the jobs to slave processing elements, and on completion they inform the master, which in turn collects the results. Okay, so this is the most commonly used, very popular model, master slave model, where one computer will sorry, one computer, one processor will act as a master and remaining processors will act as slaves, and this master will divide the work into small pieces and it will assign it to the slaves. Upon completing the task, it will return control back to the master. Okay, next. Okay, and this is the diagram for levels of parallelism. So there are three levels of parallelism. So we, depending upon the size, we call it as large level parallelism, medium, and fine grained parallelism. Okay, you can see the large level parallelism happens at task level. See, there are so many tasks, and there are so many processing units, and so many processors are communicating by using IPC, that is inter-process communication. So that means when each processor is doing one individual meaningful task, and If there is any dependency to execute the task, they will communicate by using the IPC. Okay, that becomes large level parallelism, and that can be achieved at programming level. And as a medium level parallelism, say for example, you have written one. Say for example, you have written one C++ program, and in entire program you have written one function which is parallelizable. Okay, so that means you have main function. Say for example, you have a program with two functions. So one is the main function, another one is the user defined function in which you have implemented the algorithm. Okay, let us say some algorithm. Okay, now therefore the code which contains main function, okay, and the code, say for example, or say for example, overall the code size is 200 lines, and the user defined function contains say 180 lines. So remaining 20 lines is called as a sequential code, and whatever the code 180 lines that you have written to work on parallel machines, that is called as parallelizable code. Okay, so that is an example for medium level parallelism, and that can be implemented using programming languages. Okay, so when you write a parallel program, we divide the code into two parts. So parallel code and sequential code. So sequential code includes the header files, whatever you define, and the main function. Okay, that means which will execute sequentially on the single processor. The meaning of sequential code is the code which will execute on single processor, and the parallel code means the code which can execute on parallel computers. So for that we use parallel programming models. So one such example is OpenMP. To Next is fine-grained parallelism. So the meaning of fine-grained parallelism is if your processor or if your compiler is parallelizing something, we call it as fine-grained parallelism. So example, what it can parallelly execute is looping statements, branching statements. These are some of the statements which can be parallelly executed by your compiler. As we know that the compiler will scan complete code at one shot, whereas the interpreter will scan one line at a time. So hence we call it as parallelism at compiler level. So elements of distributed computing. So elements of distributed computing are nothing but the processors. Processors are the elements of distributed computing. Okay, nothing much inside that. Then general concepts and definitions. We know already the definitions. And components of distributed system. Okay, look at this diagram. This diagram shows what are the components of distributed system. So in the lower level we have the hardware. So hardware includes processor, RAM, memory, I/O channels, okay, and even the networking equipment. Okay, because even the networking components are very much crucial to build a distributed network. And in the second layer we have operating system. Okay, so whenever we say a distributed system, obviously operating system is compulsory. So upon the hardware we have a operating system. Then very importantly, the very key element is the middleware. So to achieve distributed computing, there must be a middleware software so that multiple nodes can communicate each other using interprocess, using message passing model. Using message passing model, different nodes within the network can communicate. So upon that middleware, we use applications. Okay. So that's about the components of distributed system. Okay, say, and the other thing we need to understand from this diagram is that, say for example, if you get a question, explain components of distributed computing, you cannot write the diagram as they have shown here. So what you need to do, so just you need to write 4 blocks. So hardware, operating system, middleware, and applications, and you connect those blocks using the arrow. Okay, so that's what you need to learn. So this is the very much about the, they have used a lot of graphics to make it more meaningful. So but you cannot write as it is in the examination, just you need to write the horizontal blocks, and you need to write hardware, operating system, middleware, applications, and you need to connect them. So that is good enough for us. So that's what you need to learn. Next, the architectural styles for distributed computing. There are two types of architectural styles: software based architectural styles and system based architectural styles. Okay, we'll see which are the software based architectural styles. Okay, I have made one mistake. Okay, this is software based architectural style. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, while giving this PPT, I have converted this into PDF so that it will be page number 38 for you. So in
Okay,
that
sir.
you can you need to make one correction. So it is software architectural styles. Under that we have data centered styles, data flow based architectural styles, and virtual machine architectural styles, and so on. Okay, so if you get that question, at least you need to explain any 2 or 3 techniques. You need to
Sir,
mention
PPT is
everything.
not visible, sir.
The page number 38 in
Sir,
the
PPT is not visible, sir.
huh?
PPT is not visible, sir. Now.
I'll convert again. I'll convert this into PDF, and or I'll send the PPT itself.
Okay, okay.
I'll send the PPT itself today. Okay. So it is software architectural styles for distributed computing. See, when you say distributed computing, it requires both software setup, software support at software level, and also at system level. Okay. So as I was mentioning yesterday, say in case of parallel computing, so there are 2 things. So one thing is that all the processors can be in single CPU. That means only one system. We are talking about parallelism at single computer level. But when you want to achieve parallelism at across multiple systems, then you need to have the systems with same hardware architecture and same operating system. So that means homogeneous systems you need to have. But when I say distributed computing, so I can have multiple computers with various different architectures. That is possible, and that is okay for us. Okay. So therefore, there what is important is the middleware software what you are installing upon the host operating system. That is the one actually which supports distributed computing. So in distributed computing, the layer of middleware software, whatever you install upon the hardware, upon the operating system on all the nodes, actually that is one which helps for achieving distributed computing. Okay, and at the same time, your system also plays a key role in supporting for distributed computing in terms of providing its resources. So therefore, hence, they have categorized the architectures at 2 levels, at software level and at system level. So now we'll see what are the software architectures available for distributed computing. So one is data centered approach. So as we know that data centered approach, see data center models already we have studied in various subjects and also in software engineering. The meaning of data centered means, so your application may have a number of components, but the database is centralized. So whenever you perform any operations using so many different modules of the software, always the data will be retrieved and saved in the centralized database. That is called as data centered model. And the data flow model, so example is pipes and filters. So data flow means it is something looks like a flow chart. So before moving from one phase to another phase, so there can be some, okay, there is a processing occurring in each phase, and there will be some process improvement from one phase to another phase. Okay, that is called data flow. So data flow means it is sequential. Okay, say for example, before step 1 you cannot go to step 2. So before finishing step 2, you cannot go to step 3. That means there exists a dependency. There exists a dependency. Okay. We can something like sessional cutoff. When you take an examination, and if they say that there is a sectional cutoff, so that means that until you complete the first section, you cannot go to the second section, like that. So whenever you follow data flow model, say they are quoting the example of pipes and filter. Say what happens when you write a shell script by using pipes and filter, it is mandatory that first you have to execute the first command. Okay, then you see what is the outcome. You take that outcome as input to the second command. Okay, then execute the second command. You take the output of second command as input to third command. So that is the sequence, that is the flow, it continues. So, and you can see the processing happening at each level. Okay, that is called data flow model. Then virtual machine. So it follows rule based model. So it uses the predicates. So that is true false mechanism to evaluate the decisions. Then call return model. So that is the concept of main program. So main program, actually that's the whole controller. Okay, it will start executing the instructions sequentially. So whenever any user defined function occurs, it will give the control to the user defined function. So until it finishes, once the user defined function finishes the execution, once again it has to return control back to the main function. Okay, that is how so it works. Okay, now similarly we will see system based models. Okay, system based architectural styles. There are two fundamental reference styles. One is client server architecture and peer-to-peer model. These are the system based architectural styles for distributed computing. That so there will be one server which contains lot of resources which are required by the client, and you will be having multiple clients. Clients will keep requesting for the server for the resources. If the resource is available, the client will serve the request, or else it will throw some error message. Okay, that is architectural. Okay, that is one architecture. Second architecture is peer-to-peer system. So in case of peer-to-peer system, each node within the network will act as both client as well as a server. That means it will be having the capability to serve for multiple clients, as well as it can also request for some service from other nodes. So hence it can each node is both client as well as a server, and it is ideally suited for content delivery systems and file sharing systems. Okay, whenever you have a requirement of file sharing or content delivery, so you can build a client server system, sorry, peer-to-peer system. And when you can build a client server model means, say for example, so you are dealing with an application where you are going to host all the resources at one place, and from that place you want all your clients to access the resources. If that is your requirement, you can go with client server model. Okay, say for example, you have developed one e-commerce portal. Okay, and you want to run the business. So obviously it follows client server model. Why? Because so all clients means all people when they want to shop. Okay, when they want to do shopping, so they will enter into the portal and they will select, and okay, so from there they will pick. Okay, that means your server is serving for multiple clients. And another example is search engine. Okay, you take any search engine, Yahoo or Google. So multiple clients across the globe, millions of people across the globe will be searching for the resources. Okay, and if it is available in the server, it will serve, or else it will throw some error message, resource not found or something like that. Okay, you can see the client server architectural style diagram. Okay, this is a two-tier model. That means there is client and there is a server, and in between there is a network. Okay, so client is making the request to the server if the and the server in turn is responding. This is two-tier. You can see here three-tier model. So where you have client and actual server. Okay, and in turn that server is connected to another server. Okay, that can be database server, file server, or any server. Okay, this is called three-tier model. And look at the example of n-tier model. Okay, you have a client, you have a server, in turn that is connected to multiple servers. Okay, that is n-tier. So this is a very important question. Even for you people in the interview also they will ask. Okay, can you give example for client server model, three-tier model, and n-tier model? Okay, this is very important from interview perception. Then models for IPC. So multiple times already we have discussed. Okay, message passing interface, RMI, distributed objects. Okay, these are the examples for message passing. Technology for distributed computing, RPC. So how to implement RPC in Java, we have remote method invocation, RMI. So using that we can implement RPC. And there are distributed object frameworks like Corba, DCOM, distributed component object model, Corba. These are some of the examples how to implement distributed object frameworks. So if you ask me what is Corba and what is its role, so actually Corba is a framework which will give you the specification regarding how to communicate to different objects which are geographically separated. Okay, say for example, one machine is in Bangalore, another machine is in Mumbai, and another machine is in Kolkata. So you want to send data from one object to another object. So what you should do, you should pack the data. So you should encrypt it and you need to send it to other machine. So during this process, it will tell you the specification. So that's what the role of any frameworks. Okay, and this also already we have discussed. RPC, remote procedure call. See, for you, what I expect is you learn either this RPC diagram or you learn either this distributed object programming model diagram. So either one will be asked in the examination, in the main examination. Okay, so compulsorily one question will be there either on RPC or so distributed object programming model. So, and service oriented computing already we have discussed many a times. So you want any clarification? SOA? Hello? The whole idea of service oriented architecture is to provide services using web-based applications. So for that, we need an architecture which is nothing but services oriented architecture. And to implement those services, we have two alternatives. One is web services and REST. Okay, REST-based APIs and service and web services. So to implement web services, as we know, we use SOAP, WSDL, and so on. Okay. You can see this web service interaction. How the web services will interact, you can see here. So, okay, here is the web server, and here is the UDDI registry. So UDDI registry, that is Universal Discovery and Description Interface. So that is the registry where the web services developed by the vendor are registered. Say for example, that can be an Google Maps. Okay, that can be one web service. So scanning the pen drive online, that can be one web service. So providing online calculator, that can be one web service. Similarly, your sixth pay calculators and all. You might have seen seventh pay calculators and all. So those things are available in the internet as web service. So such services can be registered here in the UDDI. Okay, and there can be somewhere there will be a vendor who will keep developing the. See, the process is like, say for example, you are an vendor of you are a vendor who will develop the software. So what you do, you will keep developing the web services. So once you finish developing the web service, then you need to register it in the UDDI registry so that it will be available for the end users. So like say web service client, he is a web service client, will search in this server, that is UDDI registry, that is also one of the server. That service is available. Okay, it will serve that service to the client. Okay, so the moment it will start serving that service to the client, you will be intimated, being a vendor, so you will be intimated that okay, there is a client who is consuming your service. So the takeaway, the conclusion from this module 1 and 2 is that, so from modules 1 and 2 we understood the eras of computing, principles of parallel and distributed computing, so hardware architectural styles for computing and architectural styles for computing. See, hardware architectural styles means single instruction, single data, single instruction, multiple data, those things. Then architectural styles means software based styles and system based architectural styles. Then levels of parallelism. Then distributed computing models. So that is MPI, Corba, web services, and SY. Okay, these are the major concepts that will be covered. So apart from this, what other things we learn from this module 1 and 2 is the terminology. So say for example, what is distributed computing, what is parallel computing, what is service oriented architecture, what is web 2.0, what is the meaning of web services, what is the meaning of architecture. Basically the meaning of the architecture, in the general term, the architecture means the architecture will specify what are the subsystems within a complete system. So when you say a system, the system can be anything. Okay, the architecture shows you the subsystems and its interconnection. Okay, that's the meaning of architecture. Okay, then framework. So what is the meaning of framework? See, when the concept of framework will come into the picture, so when you start developing a system, first you will start with the architecture. Then once the architecture is done, then you will build the framework. So the framework will give you an idea and alternative tools available to develop a system. So for example, if I take the example of J2EE, say there are in J2EE, basically Java, J2EE framework, it starts with core Java. Then in advanced Java, it contains RMI, JDBC, and so on. Then further, when we step into J2EE, we have the JSP servlets, JSF, Java Server Faces, Springs, Hibernate, Struts, Ajax, then JSTL, that is JSP tag libraries, then what else? XML, even XML is part of J2EE, then web services, okay, then Spring. So there are so many components. So at the same time, there are alternatives also. Say for example, what you can do with servlets can also be done with JSP. Okay, but when you think about security, JSP is more secure. Why? Because when you write JSP, actually what you can do, you can use JSP to design the GUI, and you can use servlets to implement the core logic, so that you can separate the design from implementation. That is a better model, instead of doing everything in JSP or everything in servlet. Okay, like that, always there are alternatives. So therefore the whole purpose of the framework is to give you an idea about what are all the components available to develop this system. Okay, and then so once the framework is identified, Okay, the solution architect and the project manager will decide exactly what components, what tools we need to pick to develop this system. Okay, it's the solution architect and the project manager who will pick. So among say for example, for if we want to develop an e-commerce portal, so we are selecting J2EE. Okay, in J2EE, so now whatever I have listed, those many tools and technologies are available. So now it is the duty of the project manager and the solution architect to freeze. Okay, core Java, anyhow compulsory it is required, and let us pick servlets and JSP. So to separate the implementation and the GUI part, then let us, instead of JSP, now it is advantageous to pick struts for security reasons. Let us pick struts. Okay, like that they'll freeze the components, what to use, what not to use. Okay, then say for example, if you want to achieve distributed object communication, so earlier people used to use Java beans, and you know the pain in implementing Java beans. It is very much confusing. Say for example, if you are working on Java beans, and if you are continuously working, yes, you can work. Say for example, 2 months if you are not working on Java beans, once again even you will feel it very difficult. Once again, you feel like learning it again. So concept wise you'll be knowing, but implementation wise there are a lot of confusions. So now they use Springs. Okay, now they use Spring to implement that. So that's why always there are alternatives in J2EE. So there is no language which is as robust as Java to implement anything. So you say whatever comes to your mind, you say web application, you say mobile application, anything and everything can be developed by using Java. So hence, so in that terms, it is more robust. Even there was a framework called as J2ME. So Java 2 Micro Edition. Okay, but people were calling it as Mobile Edition, actually it was Micro Edition, using which people are earlier days during 2005 and all, people were developing mobile applications. Now after the emergence of other operating systems like Android, so people stopped using that J2ME. Now that has become obsolete. Guys, any clarification you want in terms of terminology that we have used? Like processing elements. Processing elements is nothing but processors. SMP, symmetric multiprocessor. So symmetric multiprocessor is one architecture style where there will be multiple processors within the system and they share the common memory. That means the concept of promoting shared memory within the system, within the multiprocessor system. You have a multiprocessor system and it is using shared memory. If that is the model, we call it as SMP. And there is one more model called as NUMA. So NUMA means say NUMA machine. The meaning of NUMA machine is like, so non-uniform memory access. So when you have non-uniform memory access, actually that the performance of the system will be very high. So when you want to improve the performance of your system, you can use NUMA, that is non-uniform memory access. Okay, so we are ending the revision of module 1 and 2. So with this, I am stopping here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.